What you thinking about? When it comes to your video production projects, a motorized camera slider is one really interesting way that you can differentiate your footage and just set it apart from everyone else's. This here is the Edelkrone SliderPLUS M long, and I'm not gonna lie to you, it's not cheap. The slider costs about $680. The slider module costs about $750. So just to start out, you're looking at almost $1,500. But do you really need to have a slider in your video production projects? I'm gonna help you decide that. In this video, I'm gonna tell you how you can benefit from including a motorized camera slider in your video production projects.
So, why buy an Edelkrone motorized slider? Not only does it come packaged in this sleek black packaging emblazoned with a mysterious Illuminati-style crest, sliders are used to get smooth cinematic shots with parallax, which adds a moving three-dimensional feel to your footage. A slider makes the boring and mundane much more interesting. Observe: boring balcony rails, cinematic rails; plant, cinematic plant; tree, cinematic tree. Kidding aside, having a motorized slider like the Edelkrone SliderPLUS M long can really give you beautiful looking footage. There's this thing about slider footage that just looks so much nicer than a regular static shot. Edelkrone sliders also include the added perk of interchangeable belts. You can either use a fabric material belt for manual operation, or you can upgrade to the motorized version. The magnetic inserts make it easy to swap out your belts. Just lift them out and snap them in. Easy peasy. By the way, the motorized version is superior to manual operation in every way, and that goes for all camera sliders regardless of brand. Motorized sliders are just easier to use, and they give you many more creative possibilities.
There are a few things that I really like about the Edelkrone SliderPLUS M long in particular. The first thing is its functionality. You control it using a smartphone app. Push your thumb on the screen and it just goes wherever you want it to at the speed that you want it to. You want to go a little slower, then just drag it a little slower. You want to go fast, just hold it all the way to the end, just like that.
The Edelkrone app has a standard waypoint system, so you can set up 2 automated positions, or even 3, and the motorized slider will travel back and forth between your waypoints. Hey, look, slider goes forward, goes backward, forward, back, 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 forward, back.
One other thing that you'll notice is that the camera head moves along with the track. And this allows you to have a much longer travel distance in a much smaller package. When you buy a motorized slider, you want to make sure you have long enough travel distance so you can really get the nice parallax effect that motorized sliders are intended for. You don't want to get one that's too short, you don't want to get one that's obviously too long and hard to carry. I've used the Kessler Pocket Dolly, and while the Kessler Pocket Dolly and the Edelkrone SliderPLUS M have the same travel distance, this one accomplishes the same thing in a much smaller package. This is actually unique to Edelkrone sliders. Battery life on this is fantastic. The Canon LPE6 batteries, which are really common and available really cheap, hold the charge really well. And I'm really glad that Edelkrone chose the LPE6 batteries for this particular slider and not some weird proprietary batteries that you couldn't get anywhere else. But I've got to say, my favorite aspect of the Edelkrone SliderPLUS M long is the time-lapse mode.
And here's how it works. You punch in your time-lapse recording time, camera shutter speed, and snapshot interval. Tap the start button, and the slider moves in tiny increments as your camera takes its snapshots. With Edelkrone's time-lapse mode, you can create very impressive time-lapses that are so much more cinematic than a static time-lapse, where the camera is just sitting still on a tripod. You can even add a time ramp effect if you want to get super fancy with your time-lapse, and speed it up and slow it down.
Edelkrone sliders also have something called power mode. With power mode, you can put a heavier load on the slider. Now, mind you, the motor is a little bit louder when you use it on power mode, but if you're putting on a camera like a Canon C100, you can do that.
So here's a slider with my smartphone, and my GH5, and of course, my big fat C100.
Another thing that I like about the Edelkrone SliderPLUS M long is how lightweight it is. It's made out of lightweight aluminum. If you have a shoot where you need to walk down a long hallway or you need to take it upstairs, this is really easy to move around. One other thing that I really like about the Edelkrone slider, and just Edelkrone sliders in general, is their customer service as well. This is not the first slider module. They had an earlier version that wasn't as strong, it wasn't as reliable, and after realizing that, Edelkrone released an improved version, the V2 slider module, and just sent them out to all slider module owners, completely free of charge. This new one has a much better battery placement. The plug kind of goes into the bottom, which is kind of annoying, so I can't set it down flat, but you know what? It has legs anyway. They are easily positionable. If you want it to be a little higher, you can just turn them inward, turn them outward.
So those are the good things about the Edelkrone SliderPLUS M Long. There are a few things that I don't quite like, starting with the price. As I mentioned previously, the setup costs about $1,500, but it does get premium customer service and there are no compromises on product quality. So in my eyes, it's worth it, but it's still very expensive.
One thing you need to look out for is that when the slider head is on the far side of the slider, it does shift its weight all the way over to one side, which sometimes means that the whole slider goes lopsided. So that's something you need to look out for as you use this.
And lastly, the power on, power off mechanism could use some improvement. There is no on and off switch. Instead, to turn the slide module on, you have to plug it in, and to turn it off, you have to unplug it. An actual power on, power off switch would be much better. Those are seriously the only bad things that I can think of. This thing is great. I'll admit it, when I first bought this slider, I thought that I'd only use it from time to time. But after discovering how useful and versatile it is, it joins me and my team on almost all of our video shoots. There are just so many ways to use it. It's easy to transport, and a smartphone app makes it easy to set up and use. My clients love the way the time lapses look on the Edelkrone, and my talking head shots look amazing. Even my product shots look so much better. Anytime I leave my Edelkrone slider at home, I keep thinking, darn, I should have brought it with me. A good motorized slider like the Edelkrone isn't a mandatory piece of equipment, but I highly recommend buying one if you can budget for it. You should buy a motorized slider before you buy a gimbal. So that's it, camera nerds. Please like this video if you found it helpful, and of course, subscribe to this channel. More stuff coming up, so stay tuned. Bye!